Hey, one more thing before you go. What do National Lampoon's Vacation, Eat, Pray, Love, Under the Tuscan Sun, The Hangover, Mamma Mia, Little Miss Sunshine, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and Roman Holiday all have in common? Well, we're about to tell you. They capture the essence of vacations, from the comedic to the chaotic to the transformative and the romantic. It opens our heart and it opens our minds to wanderlust. Vacations are more than just a break from our daily grind. They're a chance to rejuvenate, explore new horizons, and to connect with ourselves and our loved ones. In this episode, we're going to uncover the art of the vacation and the benefits of taking time off, from boosting mental health to enhancing creativity and productivity. I'm your host, Michael Hurst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. My guest in this episode, as they probably have felt, she is the perfect person to have the answers to all of our questions. She's an award-winning fine art photographer and a tour guide that originally hails from the Midwest, but also a world traveler. She's a podcast host and a weekly travel group blogger. I've been there. You need to visit us. April connects artists and travelers with scenic destinations in the U.S. and specializes in women's travel groups, inspiring, motivating, and educating those individuals that want to learn about different cultures, foods, customs, and making it easier to be able to understand the history and the beauty of what lies beneath our feet and above our hearts. Welcome to the show, April.
Hi, thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think that, we all kind of had dreams of traveling to far off places, eating exotic food, visiting historical landmarks, beautiful places, sitting on the beach in Maui, like we love to do, or southern France. Or maybe watching the leaves change in New England, Yellowstone,
Yes.
Yosemite, which you've done a lot of.
Yeah, we all love all of that. And I think we need to encourage more people to get out and do that. I think it's just super beneficial.
I agree as well. And I mean, before we started the program, we were talking a lot about how it's different in Europe than it is here. It's different in different parts of the world uh, when it comes to vacations and holidays. Not your Christmas holidays, but what they call a holiday. But we're going to talk about that. There are some pros and cons of spontaneous versus planned vacations, and that's no matter where we go. So I'm kind of excited about this conversation.
Yeah, I'm always excited to talk travel and I'm excited to chat with you and catch up with you, Michael. Thanks.
Well, Diane and I get lost in shows like I don't know if you've seen these or not, but Stanley Tucci's Searching for Italy. Somebody feed Phil. If you haven't seen
Okay.
that, you have to watch
Oh,
that.
it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite shows.
My sister turned us on to that, and it was like, wow, now we can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
The Reluctant Traveler with Eugene Levy. Have you seen that one?
No, I don't think I've seen that one
It,
yet.
it's it's on Apple Plus, and it's brilliant. It's the same principle as Stanley Tucci's, traveling Italy or searching for Italy. He goes. He's not a traveler at all. He's a homebody, and they've pushed him into kind of going out and exploring the world. So he's looking at it from like a first-time explorer all
Wow.
over the world and the United States. It's pretty cool, actually.
I'll have to check that out. There was
Yeah.
another one, and I can't think of the name of it, where it was a father son kind of thing too. And the son was really outgoing, and the dad was kind of more, yeah, reserved, and yet he had different tastes. And it's like, just their choices of places was fascinating. I don't have the name of that one, though. I'm sorry.
I'll have to, that's okay. I'll have to look that one up. What we love about them is the fact that we can live vicariously through them. We get to understand a little bit about the culture. We understand about the food. We understand about the exotic places, and living
Yeah.
vicariously through these movies and TV shows. It helps us to create kind of a wish list in
Yeah.
regard to that. So, I think that we we don't get to travel as much as we want to get to travel because we have
Oh,
limitations, especially because Diane's working full time. Yeah, I mean, we'd all would love to be just a full time traveler, right? I mean,
right. I think a lot of us would love to do that. Yeah. But a lot of people in America, it's the common concern. It's, getting time off. A lot of, and I think that is one thing. I generally don't like to bring up COVID, but it did allow kind of this reset for, employers to see different ways for people to work, or maybe different ways to incorporate that life work balance, which I think we so desperately need.
I think that, and I think we've had conversations in the past on your show, and aside from that, is that COVID gave us that opportunity to reset ourselves and to find out really what's important. Slow down, take a breath, look around, enjoy what's here, enjoy life, enjoy food, enjoy great places to visit, because we all know life can change in an instant.
Right. And just that quality time with the people you care
Yes.
about. I mean, we all get into that hustle. School is just starting in many places as we're recording this. And it's that whole routine of, get up in the morning, drop your kids off, or get to work,
Yeah.
and by the time you get home, everyone's exhausted. They're grabbing food, and you and your spouse, even, I know sometimes with myself, you're not having those deep connections. You're not sitting outside and watching the
Yeah.
sunset.
It makes a huge difference in what we do. I mean, it, within all of that, in understanding that, I mean, you've been doing this for at least 30 years, somewhere thereabouts,
Yeah,
or maybe
close
a
to
little bit
that.
longer. I'm not giving away
No,
your age.
yeah, yeah, it's been a while. My parents kind of instilled that joy of travel and the importance of travel. And even though, literally, because oftentimes you hear people say, "Oh, it's so expensive to travel," but as a kid, we learned, less gifts. I've kind of talked about this often before, like, you know, presents, items, they come and go. And as kids,
Yeah.
it's like we were taught, like, you know what, we're going to give you less stuff under the Christmas tree, but come summer, we're going to go on this road trip and we're going to explore and discover places. So there was that anticipation, and then that love of planning it and thinking about it. So to me, the planning is almost as enjoyable as taking the trip
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, we're going to talk about that actually. I think that's
Yeah.
important to know. It is that what an amazing opportunity that your parents gave you in regard to that. I mean, when I was a kid, we took very, very little vacations. So when I was old enough to start taking vacations, I didn't know how to take a vacation. You know what I mean? I had to kind of
Yeah.
learn. My first, I've been married twice, been married before, but we're friends with my ex-wife, so it's okay. We 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 had to learn to take a vacation. So I think I've come to grow and understand that there's an art to taking a vacation. I think I would tend to believe that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think there is. And I think for a lot of people, they honestly, they're not sure where to start. They don't, and if it wasn't part of your upbringing, my husband, his parents didn't kind of instill that joy of exploring as such. I think, for them, going on a vacation, which was rare, it had to be like this big thing, or this big expensive exotic place, like go to Hawaii. Whereas, I don't know, I think there is an art to taking time and planning and researching and thinking through and allowing that to kind of sink in and grow that anticipation. I think when I have time to do that, the end result is I tend to enjoy it more. I don't know, I have a better, understanding of it. I have done it both ways, where you have that last minute and that joy of just, here we are and what are we going to see. But so there's some skill in both, but I think there is an art to planning and being methodical about what your goal is on the vacation. I think that's the other thing. I've seen people that they didn't really know what their goal was, and so for both a tour leader or someone trying to help them plan that, then there can be some disappointment, because you need to kind of know what your outcome is. Are you just want to enjoy spending time on the beach and relaxing, or do you want to see a bunch of things? So again, it goes into the art of designing that time away.
I agree with you. I think there are two types of people. There are those that love the thrill of the last minute adventure, and there's those that prefer the comfort of a well organized itinerary. My wife hates it because I'm like you. I kind of lay things out. I want to know what we're doing, where we're going, where we're going to eat, where the right. Now, part of it is because obviously I have some dietary issues. So, with regard to that, we have to do some kind of planning. with it because of the dietary restrictions and things like that. But for the most part, she goes, I just want to lay on the beach, and then if we want to go someplace, we'll just go do it. And
Right.
yeah, so we don't fight about it, but we have a happy medium in between. So I'll kind of plan a bunch of stuff out, and then I'll say, okay, so on this day or this day, then we could do, you want to do something spontaneous, we can just do it, kind of a situation. Do you think that coming from both of those perspectives, are there advantages or challenges that might benefit one or the other?
I think communication in either situation is super important because a lot of couples are one person's like really the planner, they want to take charge, they want to lay it all out, which can completely work. But for someone else, they need to know that there's something unexpected or taking into account what they enjoy doing, whether that's catching a music performance or allowing for the unexpected. So sometimes it is hard for the planners to kind of like lay back a little or factor in some of that spontaneity. I think there's pros and cons to both, but I think both can work out. I think a lot of it is communication and how much time do you want to spend with other people, because some people are more extroverted and some people are more introverted. Some people go into a restaurant, and I find this really fun and it happens more often outside of the United States. For whatever reason, Europeans tend to be, they have bigger families. Some countries like Spain or Italy, as we know, their culture is just, more talkative, more expressive. So it's not uncommon to go into a locals restaurant and the people at the next table over want to chat with you. They want to invite you into their conversation. And for some people, if you're from the United States or your background is, say, from a country that's a little more introverted, which tends to be some of the colder countries, I find, that can feel a little uncomfortable, or you might feel unsafe, or you might have some, you know, uh, I don't know, you might hold back a little, I guess. So having those conversations ahead of time, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think the apprehension, you might have some apprehension with it. I'm very extrovert because I grew up with a large group of Italian family and friends. So I am that person. I understand that mentality from that perspective. My sister's first husband was from Rome, and we have Sicilian and Toscano in our blood, and as well. And we had groups of. I think when Roberto came over, about 20 other family and friends came over, and we all
Wow.
lived in the same apartment complex. So I kind of grew up with the live, the laugh, the talk, you eat together, you talk, you have
Right.
conversations. You don't sit at the table. I'm looking down here at my table, like I'm looking at
Yeah,
the
I
table.
know.
You don't sit at the table looking through your phone constantly, like you walk into a
Right.
restaurant now, and what you see is everybody's heads down and they're scrolling through their phone, not having a conversation. So it's easy for me to be able to uh, uh, enjoy part of that within the arena of traveling. I think because I think it would allow me more conversation opportunities to get to know their culture and to get to know them,
Yes.
type of a situation. Whereas my wife, she comes right out and says, I'm okay with sitting at a table by ourselves, and I'm okay with not doing this or that. But I will say, 35 years married this September, she has grown out of that to a good point. So we're ready to explore. She's kind of ready to open those doors a little bit and have those unique opportunities. Um, what do you think? I mean, earlier you had mentioned something about preparing, like for an itinerary or for a vacation within itself. Do you have any like practical tips on preparing for a vacation? Um, Whether it be a weekend or whether it be long term. I mean, you do tours. I almost said pod tours. You don't
That's
do
a new
pod
one.
tours. You do you do tour groups that you take out. Do you have anything that you share about what we should pack, or to make it less stressful so they don't carry. You see, I remember watching some of these old movies where you see
Oh my
somebody get
gosh.
off the boat and there's like loads and loads where they're pull in these huge carts with stuff stacked up. You got 15 sets of clothes and
Oh yeah, well even the old suitcases. You look at the old suitcases from the 40s and 50s and maybe into the
yeah,
60s. They had no wheels. Everything was you picked it up the suitcases. So we do have the benefit now of wheels and much lighter weight materials, but I still think the best thing is to try to not pack everything you need, and it's something I feel like I'm working on myself, is to always pack less. I mean, airlines are charging more for checking a bag. You now have to worry, is it going to get lost somewhere and delayed? So if you can honestly go carry on only, you're going to save yourself just headaches, hassle. You'll be able to get in and out of the airport faster. You're not standing at that baggage claim waiting for that extra bag that may or may not show up. And I know for some people, I travel a lot with my father. He does have more medications or things that take up more space than maybe some of our younger travelers that, yeah, change of jeans and a couple shirts and you're good to go. So I know it may not work for everybody, but again, if you can travel with less and keep in mind, what if I have to carry this? What if in Europe they drop me off, and even the cabs? I was in Barcelona, and some of the streets, the cabs aren't able to go down all of the streets. So now they're dropping you off, and you're still walking 2 or 3 blocks and bumping your bag over the stones or, lifting it up. So being physically able to just manage your own stuff is going to save you a lot of headache. And just, why start off the trip already worn out from getting there? So I recommend that. I also recommend, having, if there are some must-see places. I went to Barcelona, same trip, and I hadn't thought ahead, to be honest, on some of the. I'm like, oh yeah, I can go to Park Güell. I can get in here. The biggies, La Sagrada, you do need a ticket. Even some of the other gaudy exhibits, homes, you need to pre-plan. National parks. I was talking to someone just yesterday in Colorado. I was surprised to
yeah,
learn that Rocky Mountain National Park now is on a reservation
yeah. Have to take
system.
reservations. It is my wife's parents live just outside of Rocky Mountain National Park, and uh, he we grew up. Even before I met them, we grew up just driving into Rocky
Yeah.
Mountain National Park. There was no reservations. There was not lines and lines and lines of people. And the last time we went there, we wanted to visit it again. And he said, "Oh, you should have told me because we needed to make reservations." And I was just shocked.
Yeah, I am actually too, because I don't consider it one of our busier national parks. I mean, you hear about Yellowstone and
Yeah,
some of the others, but yeah. And I was also told even some of the state parks in Colorado. So
that's
just
crazy.
taking a few minutes to think ahead or look at your dates, look at when you're going to be in a location. Is it a busy season? And countries, even countries, as we mentioned going back to earlier in our discussion, they take several weeks as holiday. There less
Yeah.
hotels open, or maybe the shops close from 12 to 3 for siesta, for relaxing. So
Yeah, that's one thing. It's interesting that I found that at least watching these television shows.
yeah,
I've been to London, but I've not been to France or Italy or any of the other Spain, any of those. We plan on doing that over the next couple of years. But I found that and Roberto used to tell me this all the time. In Italy, and I know they do it in France too. They take an hour or two for lunch.
yeah,
It's not this 30-minute shove it down your throat and then get back to work right away. They take an hour, and then a lot of it is, I think France has got some kind of a law or rule that when you're on lunch, certain thing, cops have to still, and those kind of people still have to
right,
answer, but your boss is outlawed from contacting you, or when you finish work, they're outlawed. They can't call you unless it's like an emergency type thing. But yeah, they enjoy lunch. It's like no phone, no computer. Sit down, have a lunch, talk, have a
right.
conversation, enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy while you're here, kind of a thing. I love that. I'm excited about that, actually. It may drive my wife a little crazy, but I'm excited.
No, I'm excited about it too, and I actually really enjoy going to small towns in some of these countries like Spain or Germany or other places now that I've been in Europe where, yeah, Sunday comes, the shops are closed, a good portion of the restaurants are closed. They're spending time with their
Mm,
loved ones. They're, you know, going fishing or whatever they might love to do. It's their
yeah.
time and, business, it can wait. And I think that's a mentality we need to get back a little bit more here. I don't know how, but
Well, I agree with that. I think it has to do with mental health. I mean, there's benefits of taking regular vacations for both mental and physical health. We all know that when we do take a vacation, it refreshes us. We kind of get to relax. Our brains aren't running 100 miles a
yes,
minute. You get to enjoy life a little bit. You get to forget about the stack of paperwork on your desk or, what you have to get done when you get back and things like this. So I think there are benefits to taking regular vacations.
oh, I definitely agree. And I think more employers hopefully are starting to see the benefit, less mental health or sick
Yeah.
days if they can give their employees, work it out, some sort of balance of more time off or more of a flexible schedule.
You think it improves productivity?
Oh, I think it improves productivity. I think there's been studies. I know when I was working a regular job back in California, they'd actually done some studies and even shifting to having us put in our 80 hours in, instead of the 10 days, the 9 days. So we'd have that
Mm,
every other 3-day weekend. They were seeing, again,
very cool.
more refreshed employees, less time for calling out sick or, various things. So,
Whatever it happens to be. Well, I know that Diane and I really, really benefited not from COVID itself, but from the COVID reset.
yes,
And we've talked about this before, you and I. We benefited from that because now her work recognizes a nice balance. So she gets to work from home 2 days a week. So theoretically, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we get up in the mornings. We have breakfast out on the back patio. We get to have a cup of tea back there. We get to relax before she goes to work and so forth. And it makes the rest of the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday when she has to be in the office so much better. So, I mean,
oh yeah,
that's not a full vacation, but theoretically, for her mental, I want to say mental aspect, I guess she's very, very comfortable in this position now because it allows her a, a nice balance
right,
on
right.
what you were
And I do
talking
think
about.
employees appreciate that. They will work harder when they are there, when they are rewarded with, with a flexible situation, a boss that may allow time for a longer lunch or
Yeah.
short, some sort of, you got to work with your people. And
And work it out the way it should be worked out. You do some specialty travel that I appreciate, and I think that others would as well. It's kind of a staying at lesser known vacation destinations. We all think about Paris, we all think about Rome, we all think about, even when you go to Utah or you go to Yellowstone or you go to anything within the United States that is well known, a park or a facility or a museum, the New York Museum of Art or whatever it happens to be. Do you feel that there's a benefit to going to some lesser known vacation destinations that offer a unique approach to history and to understanding how something was created? You offered something to Diane and I think last year or the year before. We were unable to take it, but it was literally living in a historical building.
yes, yeah, I do think there's benefit in that for adults, for your family. I think I do help individuals plan itineraries that get you to literally you have a wealth of possibilities out there, small towns, state parks, things that are kind of not so popular, and you get to walk back into history in a way. There's places in New England where people have taken old farms and barns and churches and converted them into places to stay. There's a lot of these yurts now popping up. Even some of the state parks, you can stay in a cabin. There's even places now, there's a growing trend towards that whole idea of disconnecting, where they are off the grid, so to speak. You may not be able to use your cell phone in that area, whether it's a state park, a small town. And I definitely think there's a benefit on many levels to just forcing us in a way to, listening to the environment or sitting outside or having that conversation, because often we go to restaurants and we do see people that are like tapped into their phone. The whole family is sitting there and they're not spending that face to face time. So I think there's a huge benefit. I also think that you learned something maybe that you hadn't considered. When I go to Alaska, just how desolate, how still remote some of these areas are, and just it kind of puts you into a different mindset, and also a mindset of being accepting. Oftentimes we hear about these places on the news and we think, well, they've got power. Why don't they have the power backup? But once you actually go and see how far removed some of these locations are, or see the practice of the salmon and people still fishing for the salmon and they're getting their dinner for the rest of the month. In Alaska, they allow the locals to fish and then take so many fish for their home, for their family. I mean, you just learn so much and have a deeper appreciation, because there's often so much that we think that is different between humans, but honestly, we are so much the same. We all bleed, we all cry, we all have general wishes to raise a healthy family and have happiness. So some of those base things, if we can get back to that, I think is super important.
I agree with you. And I think that the opportunity for us to understand cultures, not just from another country, but cultures within our own country. You have a wide variety of cultures and societies here that we can all learn from. Different practices, different ways,
Exactly.
different foods, different methodologies for how they are. I have a conversation with an individual, Leo. He's got a podcast called The 13th Floor. I think that's what it is. He's from Kentucky, and he grew up in what he called a holler.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
I've heard of a holler before, but I didn't actually know what a holler was. And, Leo and I had this conversation about explaining what a holler was, and that some of these individuals and these families that have lived back in the holler, which is deep inside the forest, are ancestors from the individuals that actually settled there.
Wow.
And some of their customs are stayed the same. They still do certain things the same way. They farm exactly like they did when their ancestors did it before them, and they fix meals the same way. Everything. It just kind of is crazy. It's kind of cool, but it gives us an opportunity, I think, to understand more of who we are as a society and we are as individuals, and the history of our own country as well. I think is fascinating, in my
Oh,
opinion.
I completely agree. And that whole idea of, for a lot of individuals, that maybe they are, you're born and raised in the city, you don't realize that.
Yeah.
When I take people back to New England, like, oh, you can actually tap the maple trees and get enough maple syrup for breakfast, or how do what's beekeeping, or all of these different practices that, to that, people in New England or other parts of the country, that's just every day. And now
Yeah.
we're touting it as like, well, this is amazing, this farm to table concept, and it's something that's been going on for centuries, honestly.
Yeah, it's when I was living back in Colorado up in the mountains, it was the city folk.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were the mountain folk. They were the city folk.
Right.
That's funny. How can we as travelers balance relaxation and adventure in their vacations? Because, as I mentioned earlier, I like to plan stuff out. I figure I want to take in as much. Now, this may come from the fact that as a kid, I didn't get to do a lot of this. I like to see and take in as much as I can. I'm talking about, sites, museums, food, restaurants, everything I get my hands and eyes on and my feet on is what, I kind of like to do that. But I know we also have to relax in between. You have any tips on how we can balance that?
This is a tough one because honestly, I think it comes back to we need longer time away from our jobs, from where we work. And so it's not going to work for everyone, but I do think there needs to be a balance. And when we only have maybe 2 weeks of vacation that we've been given, and you often hear this, I need a vacation from my vacation. And that's because we want to cram in as much as we can. The new I want to be up at the crack of dawn and see the sunrise and try out the new breakfast spot and then see sunset. And, if the hours of daylight, are 12 to 14 hours, we're barely sleeping. But I think this is why we need to try to like tone it down. As I say, I often get requests for people that come to the United States and they're like, I want to see the Grand Canyon and I want to see the Statue of Liberty. I mean, and honestly, people that travel into the United States often don't realize how much space the United States occupies, and the fact that just to get from point A to point B is such distance. So you kind of got to rethink, like, what area of the United States do I want to see the canyons in the Southwest and do that? Or do I need 5 weeks to try to cover a large portion of the United States? And conversely, like if someone's going to New England and I'm only picking on that area because the states are much smaller, but we're not driving 60. There's not tons of highways that thread through these areas. So to get from one little town to the next little town, the speed limit is 30 to 35 miles per hour. That's going to take more time out of the day. So if you can, I would suggest trying to take more days away and that you can be gone for your vacation. Try to plan in maybe that day of travel. Don't over plan that day that you're traveling, because honestly, now you might get delayed. You might not get to the rental car counter. And so if you have a day and a half maybe to just relax and kind of get into the new time zone that you're in, or kind of reset and be intentional of like, oh, whew, I made it, I'm here. And same at the end, have a buffer zone, as I call it, before you come back to your life, whether that's back to your desk job or back to your whatever that life it looks like. I think that really helps.
I agree with you. I think that, how do you feel? Earlier, we were talking about like spontaneous vacations as well, like short little spontaneous. Do you think that a spontaneous vacation would kind of fill those gaps in so that we don't have to try to plan everything and try to cram all that stuff into 5 week or 1 week? Because most of us get 1 week or 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think it can. I think honestly for a lot of Americans that is a great way. Maybe pick one city for a 3-day getaway, one place, one town. I mean, there's so many secondary cities, instead of Chicago,
Mhm.
pick another place that's near Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, within a short drive, and make that a getaway, because you probably need more opportunities to refresh throughout the year than we realize. And so maybe and maybe you alternate. Maybe if you have a spouse that needs more fast pace, you pick something that, hey, we're going to go here for 48 hours and try to do and see as much as we can. But then next month, maybe we're going to just chill out and find a great place by a lake and take more walks and do more sitting and do more stare at the sky at night and see all the amazing stars, whatever that may look like, or try to do it that way a little bit. But I agree. I think a lot of
Yeah.
smaller trips can often kind of bridge that gap.
Well, I get stuff from of course, I'm going to forget the name of this major airline right when I need it. Southwest Airlines. We belong to the Southwest Airlines program, and we get stuff all the time for this, like spontaneous
Yes.
opportunities. Fly anywhere for $59. But you go through that list, and you kind of go, well, I don't want to go there. I don't really want to go there, and I don't want to go there. But for $49 or $59, I guess it would open up an opportunity for me to go see Des Moines,
Yeah.
Iowa, when I never thought I would ever want to go see Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh, I agree. I often look at those lists. I know last fall too, I was like, you know what? I'm feeling kind of tight on my budget, and I think it was Frontier Airlines, to be honest. I'm like, where does Frontier fly for 20 bucks? That's direct. I guess I won't take much. I'll have to pay for one suitcase or whatever. But I think we ended up, I want to say it was like Green Bay, Wisconsin. And, my husband was like, what's in Green Bay, Wisconsin? I said, well, let's go find out.
Yeah.
Let's rent a car and go up along the lake and go check out some apple orchards. And we actually had a really great time. And so there are these pockets of places that you can plan something unique that you may not have realized. I think Oklahoma comes up a lot for people. Tulsa,
It does.
Oklahoma, there's actually a lot happening there. There's some unique museums, restaurants. Tucson, Arizona. A lot of people are like Tucson, Arizona, but I also recently saw Tucson came up as a foodie destination. I think it got an
Wow.
award. I
Really?
want to say it was. I want to say UNESCO, and I'm going to have to double check my facts because of the diversity of the food culture in Tucson.
Wow. I didn't know that. I mean, I live here in Arizona. I did not know that.
I know, and I haven't visited Arizona enough, and it's not far from Vegas, so I may have to go check it out when it cools
Well, that's
down.
crazy. That's crazy cool. I haven't been to Tucson in a really long time. I used to go down there, well, about every 2 months when I was seeing a specialist down there. And I never actually took the time to kind of explore Tucson, to be
Cool.
honest. It's one of those things where I went down there for a specific reason, turned around and came back up, to home. And, it's a 3 hour drive for us from where we're at. But it was, I never really thought about Tucson as a destination, quote unquote, kind of a thing. I know Tombstone is down in the arena, and that's kind of a place we always wanted to go see. Um, but yeah, that's interesting. I have to look that. I love food,
I know. I think,
so
yeah, we're gonna have to look that one up. The other tip someone gave me was they looked in the same time zone and would pick places that were for short trips that were in kind of that same
oh
time zone because then they didn't have to have these, because, even from the West Coast to the East
yeah,
Coast, that 3 hours, I mean, it can kind of be do a job on your just on your sleep schedule, when you
yeah.
eat, all of that. Unfortunately, when you're not 20 anymore, it
I'm
does.
learning that. I'm learning that the hard way. See,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
that
my
going east is more difficult than they say coming back west. So
my mind and my heart say 25. My body says different. So, it's kind of one of those, it's just kind of one of those, we have to find a balance there too.
right, definitely.
Well, do you, can you maybe share with us a little bit, what are some of your favorite places for you to go to?
Personally, I think I've had to strike my own balance because I did make my own travel error of trying to pack too much into the days I had. I had an opportunity to go to several places in Europe earlier this year, and it was like, oh my gosh, I have never been to this city. I've never been to Barcelona. I need to also go to Madrid. And, I think I did like 10 or I don't know. I think I finally counted there were 16 cities, let's say, in the course of, say, 25. We were switching cities like every couple of days. And I'm a person that needs nature. So I think determining what kind of individual you are is super important. Or you and your travel partner, if someone's more city oriented, balancing it with some nature time. But I really enjoy the United States. I know there's amazing places that I love in Europe. I would go back to Scotland in a heartbeat just because there's more open space. There's beautiful scenery, and then these small towns and abandoned abbeys and just that history that's sitting there. But in the United States, there's plenty here, and I'm always eager to, even outside of Vegas, there's ghost towns that have history that I want to go explore that I haven't taken time to
I'm
do.
gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to look that one up. I think that would be fascinating to do that itself. I didn't know there were a bunch of ghost towns in and around there. So you've piqued my interest. I'm gonna have to take a note and go back.
Yeah,
And you go to Alaska quite a bit. You take trips to Alaska
I
quite a bit.
love Alaska, and I love the being on the ground. I know a lot of people do Alaska cruises. I'm not a cruising person.
I
I
don't
like
agree.
the flexibility of having your own car, and if I see something, I can stop the car, get
Yeah.
out. But just the grandeur of Alaska, it's a huge state. There's so much natural beauty, and you can't even capture it in a photograph. And just the vastness, the landscapes, the mountains, the ocean, the wildlife, it's still very raw,
It was
and
beautiful.
it's just stunning.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And you obviously you do stuff in New England as well. I've seen some of your photographs from you going back to New England and the changing of the colors and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. And some of the historical aspects I've seen in your photographs as well. You're a brilliant photographer as well
Oh,
as the
well,
tour
thank
guide.
you.
So it's kind of one of those things where you get to document your trips in such a way that you always have that memory with you,
Yes. Yes. And I
which is
think
very, very
taking the
cool.
time, it's like slowing down, setting up a camera, not just using your cell phone, but if you use a cell phone, get a tripod or spend time at that spot so that later you actually can recall that memory of like, what did the leaves smell like? What did the water smell like? The air. And some of these seasons, the changing in
Yeah,
spring and fall, it's unpredictable. It's going to change every year. We often think, oh, I'll go see that next year, which is fine, but next year it can be different. You can have a great year, you can have a not so great year. That's the only thing that worries me a little bit about the internet is we see all of these photos ahead of time, and so sometimes the reality
yeah.
kind of disappoints, to be honest, or that's why sometimes I don't want to look at all the pictures before I go. I just want to go and experience it first.
Well, it is. Plus, unfortunately, climate has changed drastically all over the United States, all over the world, actually.
Yes.
We're like day 80 or 81 with triple digit heat here. We're like 15 degrees above normal,
Oh, wow.
for this time period. And it just, it changes the dynamics of what we have an opportunity to go visit or see, or when something blooms or when something doesn't bloom at that time. So yeah, I think we should all take that time. Let's talk about how somebody get a hold of you if they want to come and join you on a tour and how they
Yes.
can get in touch with it. Can we do that?
Yeah, of course. So if you want to go explore places, obviously some of my favorites, as Michael said, New England. I've been passionately going to New England probably close to 25 years now. So you can contact me at yourphototravelguide.com. That's all spelled out. And I have a contact page, and I love helping people plan their own self drive vacations, no matter what your budget is. I really think you can go and do it for very little or be more extravagant. Even if you have a couple of days, there's places to go and explore. And that's probably the best way.
And I'll make sure that those links and everything are in the show notes so that we can give them an opportunity just to click it and
Yes.
and go right to it and visit you together. Because obviously, I belong to your travel, coffee chats and things like that. I've enjoyed those immensely,
Oh,
and
thank you.
realistically, you get to pique people's interest in our world and what we live in. And I think that we need to remember that we've got this vast opportunity to explore this world in so many different ways, and that we just need to take the
Oh, I
opportunity.
agree. I agree. Take the opportunity. I think with the internet now, there are so many opportunities. You can go and volunteer places and in exchange have a place to stay. There's so many ways to do things now that maybe weren't easily findable before.
Well, something you have to come back on, and we'll have to talk about that. We
Yeah, we'll
can
have to talk about that.
open some doors for people maybe that don't think that they can afford to or don't have the ability to travel. Maybe we can open those doors for them.
That would be great. Thank you so much, Michael.
April, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your conversation. I wish we could talk for another hour, but we'll save it for another one. This is one more thing before you go. Before we go, do you have any words of wisdom you could share?
I'd say just get outside, explore what's just down the road from you, and try to enjoy being with those that you love.
Those are brilliant words of wisdom. I think we should all take those to heart. Again, thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much for being part of this community. And I hope to, again, have you back on.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure as always.
For everyone else that's out there, please, one more thing before you all go, have a great day, have a great week, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.